Welcome back to Sana, Counselling and Psychotherapy Services. Today I want to talk a little bit about the transaction analysis and what it really means. So when you greet somebody of a morning and you say hello, or if you meet them in the street, that's a transaction, any unit of communication between one person and another. So things as simple as a wave, that's a transaction. And in TA we look at where those transactions, where those communications come from. And that's the analysis part. So although it sounds a big scary title, transaction analysis, it's not really. I'm going to look at 3 types of transactions, and today you could perhaps go around and see if you can identify these transactions in your everyday life. So if you remember, a couple of days ago we talked about the 3 ego states: parent, adult, child. And they are the places from which transactions take place. So a complementary transaction would be from adult to adult. So if I said to you, what's the weather like today? And you'd say, oh, it's quite nice, but yesterday it wasn't as good. That's adult to adult conversation. And that's called a complementary one. And you can also get complementary ones where you talk from parent state. So you might say, your boss might say to you when you're late, what time do you call this? And you would say, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm late. The bus was late, and you go into a little bit of a panicky state, and that's possibly you're coming from the child. But that's again a complementary transaction. Sometimes in a conversation, it feels like it's gone over a speed bump. There's a jolt, there's a jar. And that's quite often because there's a cross transaction going on. So maybe you've spoken from your parent to a work colleague. You know, I asked you to get this work in by 3 o'clock and it's now 4 o'clock. And they might not want to respond from their child, and they might be coming back from adults and say, well, yeah, I know you did, but it's just the way it's been. I can have it with you by 4 o'clock. So that would kind of feel a bit awkward because they've not come back from child, they've actually come back from adult, and that's what's known as a cross transaction. So in a cross transaction, what happens is you speak from one ego state, inviting the other person to come from a complementary ego state, so parent, child. And instead of taking your invitation, they respond to you from a different one, so possibly from adult. So listen out for those today in your conversations where you come from one ego state, you invite another ego state, and actually you get something slightly different. The other type of transaction is called an ulterior transaction, and that has both a social aspect and a psychological aspect. The example that's given in TA today, written by Van Joynes and Stewart, is that a car dealer says to you something along the lines of, well, that's a top of the range car, but I don't think you could afford it, which appears to be an adult to adult, but actually what they're tapping into is your child saying, well, you can't afford this because you haven't got enough money. This is a sales technique a lot of salespeople use, because psychologically you will want to respond and actually prove them wrong by buying the car. So let's just recap. We've got complementary, we've got crossed, and we've got ulterior. So ulterior is where the conversation appears to be complementary, but is actually got a psychological meaning beneath it, an ulterior meaning beneath it.